Welcome to the WorldWire Update. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon for more updates and thrilling short scenes. In a stunning and unexpected move, the Supreme Court struck down President Trump's use of the International Emergency Economic Powers Act, or IEEPA, to impose sweeping tariffs on foreign goods. This landmark decision sent shockwaves through Washington and the global business community, as few anticipated such a bold check on executive authority. The justices ruled that the administration had overstepped its legal bounds, sharply curbing a key tool in Trump's aggressive trade strategy. Their opinion emphasized the importance of maintaining the balance of power between the branches of government, especially when it comes to far-reaching economic decisions. This decision marks a rare and significant check on presidential power, particularly in the sensitive area of foreign policy, where presidents have often enjoyed broad discretion. Businesses and foreign governments watched closely, as the ruling throws billions of dollars in international trade into sudden uncertainty. Many companies are now scrambling to reassess their supply chains and contracts in light of the new legal landscape. For importers, it's a relief. Tariffs had raised costs and disrupted supply chains, hurting American consumers and making everyday goods more expensive. Many hope this ruling will bring stability and predictability back to the marketplace. The case, brought by a coalition of importers and trade groups, challenged the administration's broad use of emergency powers for what had become long-term trade wars. Their argument centered on the need for clear limits to presidential authority in economic matters. The timing, just before a heated presidential election, adds even more political drama and complicates Trump's re-election platform, forcing both parties to address the future of American trade policy. The administration now faces a critical choice: either scale back the trade war or seek new legal avenues, each with major consequences for the U.S. economy and global relations. The world is watching to see what comes next. The Supreme Court's decision is a pivotal moment for American trade policy, setting a precedent that could shape the limits of presidential power for years to come. The Trump administration relied on IEEPA, a law meant for specific crises, to justify broad tariffs. Historically, IEEPA was used for targeted sanctions, not sweeping trade policy. Trump's team argued that trade deficits and foreign economic practices were national emergencies, giving the president power to impose tariffs without Congress. Critics said this stretched the law's intent, bypassing Congress's authority over trade. Lower courts pushed back, ruling the administration's emergency was too vague and open-ended. The case reached the Supreme Court after a federal appeals court found the president had exceeded IEEPA's limits. White House advisors insisted tariffs were vital for national security and economic survival. The administration argued that limiting presidential power would weaken the U.S. globally. The Supreme Court's rejection of this argument set a new boundary for executive authority. The Supreme Court's majority opinion focused on the separation of powers. The justices ruled that Congress, not the president, holds the power to impose broad tariffs. They found the administration's declared emergency was too long-term and generic for IEEPA. The court warned that allowing such use of emergency powers would let presidents bypass Congress at will. The decision reaffirms that even in complex global trade, the president must stay within legal limits set by Congress. The ruling is a clear reminder: no branch of government has absolute power. Anticipating defeat, the Trump administration quickly shifted its legal strategy. The White House began using Section 232 of the Trade Expansion Act and Section 301 of the Trade Act, laws that give the president more leeway on tariffs. Section 232 lets the president impose tariffs if imports threaten national security, a definition the administration has stretched to include economic security. Courts rarely challenge Section 232 tariffs, making them harder to overturn. Section 301 targets unfair trade practices, especially by China, and allows for retaliation. The administration expanded these tools, launching new investigations and adding hundreds of products to tariff lists. Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick was empowered to broaden tariffs on critical sectors like steel, semiconductors, and pharmaceuticals. This aggressive pivot signals the White House's determination to continue its trade war, now on firmer legal ground. The administration is doubling down, using new legal weapons to keep tariffs in place. The trade battle is far from over. Just before the Supreme Court ruling, the administration announced a new wave of tariffs under Section 232 and 301. A 10% tariff on imported lumber will raise housing costs, while 25% tariffs on furniture and cabinets target Asian exporters. These tariffs are set to escalate, pressuring companies to shift supply chains back to the U.S. Trump also threatened tariffs on all foreign-made furniture and even international movies, creating uncertainty for multiple industries. Key allies like the EU, UK, and Japan are mostly exempt for now, focusing pressure on China and Asia. But exemptions aren't guaranteed. Tariffs could expand at any time. The administration's ambitions now reach beyond industrial goods to consumer products and services. The new tariffs reshape entire industries and global supply chains. The Supreme Court's decision has reignited the national debate over tariffs, bringing renewed attention to a long-standing and deeply divisive issue in American economic policy. Supporters say tariffs protect American jobs and industries from unfair foreign practices, framing them as essential for national security and the survival of key sectors like steel, technology, and manufacturing. They argue that tough measures are needed to rebuild U.S. manufacturing, reduce reliance on foreign supply chains, and ensure that American workers are not undercut by cheaper overseas labor. The administration vows to keep fighting, using every legal tool to maintain tariffs, and insists that these policies are vital for protecting the nation's economic interests. Opponents, including importers and free trade advocates, call tariffs a tax on American businesses and consumers, arguing that they drive up prices, fuel inflation, and make everyday goods more expensive for families. They warn that tariffs disrupt supply chains, invite retaliation from trading partners, and ultimately hurt U.S. exporters and farmers who depend on access to global markets. Many see the Supreme Court's ruling as a win for the rule of law, and a step toward more stable, predictable trade policy that could benefit the economy in the long run. Critics argue that international negotiations and strong enforcement of trade agreements are better ways to address unfair trade, rather than relying on broad tariffs. The debate is fierce and emotional, with both sides claiming to defend America's economic future and accusing the other of risking prosperity and stability. The tariff battle is now a defining issue in U.S. politics and economics, shaping policy decisions and fueling passionate arguments across the nation. The Supreme Court's recent ruling has thrown U.S. trade policy into a state of deep uncertainty, sending shockwaves through Washington and beyond. The decision carries big implications for the economy, the 2024 election, and the way America does business with the world. While some existing tariffs may be rolled back or reconsidered, new ones imposed under Section 232 and 301 are often higher, more targeted, and more complex, disrupting industries like construction, furniture, and manufacturing across the country. Trump's campaign frames the court's decision as a direct attack on his America First agenda, arguing that it undermines U.S. sovereignty and economic strength. He's vowing to seek even broader powers if re-elected, promising to take a tougher stance on trade. Meanwhile, opponents highlight the economic pain, job losses, and what they see as dangerous executive overreach, making trade a central and divisive election issue. International partners are wary. Some hope for stability and predictability, but new tariffs and threats of escalation keep global tensions high, especially with China. Legal battles are far from over, as business groups and industry leaders challenge the administration's broad use of national security justifications in court. The future of U.S. trade policy will depend not only on court rulings, but also on the outcome of the next election, and whether Congress decides to reassert its constitutional authority over trade decisions. One thing is certain: the debate over tariffs and trade will continue to shape American politics and the global economy for years to come, affecting businesses, workers, and consumers everywhere. The next chapter of the trade war is just beginning, and its outcome remains uncertain.